Greetings, fellow modelers. Welcome once again. You know, I have people ask me all the time, where does he get all those marvelous toys? I make them. Okay, well, here we are, again. It's been a while since I've done a production or an introduction, what have you. Geez, I don't even know where to begin. After the car accident and everything else, it's been hell catching up. So I've been working my rear end off trying to get caught up. This is the consequence of all that hard work. What you are about to see is weeks worth of work. Okay, it looks like bam, 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 boom, 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 no problem. But it took weeks to get the video and days to edit everything out and make it look good. So, what you're about to see is the evidence of a lot of work. You get to see model kit reviews, the Aries 1B, the 350 refit, the 350 toss times 3, new projects, the Nomad, decals, 350 toss parts, wow, you name it. I mean, there's almost an hour's worth of video after I've deleted everything that was just inconsequential or that I had already surpassed. So there's a lot of work that went into this one video. This is going to have to last everybody for a while because I've got to do electronics, I've got to do some molding and casting, I've got to finish some of these build-ups and get them out the door. So this is the epic model movie. I hope you like it. So let's get to it. Keep on trekking. May the force be with you. Peace and long life. Take care and have fun. Enjoy the spring. The red buds and the dogwoods have bloomed. The leaves are popping out on the trees. It's a beautiful day and all is right with the world, unless you're in the Middle East. So, here we go. Okay, here we are. First piece of lumber before we make the first cut. I got my helper here, Igor, but he's shy and he does not want to get in front of the camera. So Igor and I are going to cut this up and then we'll show that and show some more work here in a little bit later. Okay, here's the top plate. I'm going to clean this up with a file and a sander. And then we're going to use this to make an inside cut for the bottom plate. Now, the blueprints do not call for a bottom plate, but I want to build this strong. So I've cut the side panels down 1/2 inch shorter so I can use the 1/2 inch plywood that we've got here for a bottom plate. This is going to hold all the weight, so I expect it to be strong, so I'm going to build it strong. I'm going to put some interior supports in it as well. When I get done with this captain's chair, it's going to outlast its owner. Well, maybe not. I hope you have a long life. Peace and long life, Truby. Okay, I've already went over the top plate and smoothed it out somewhat. Not 100% just yet. But it's going to be good enough to use as a template for the cutout for the bottom plate. Now what I used here, this is a concrete rasp, but it worked to get some of the high ends, the really high edges, where it was cut, not 100%, but you know, whatever. So I used a rasp, then I used a smaller rasp, a file, a multi-purpose file, which is a half round file and rasp. It's got a rasp on either side and a file on either side. So I used the smaller rasp to clean it up some more. Then I went over it with this half round rough file. So that's how we got a nice smooth edge, and we will go over it again later. More to come. Okay, well, we're getting ready to call it a day. We've got the top plate done for the base. We've got all the spacers cut and several other sections, and what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up for today and get back on it tomorrow. Now, I'm probably not going to be able to walk for a couple of days, so Igor is going to be working alone tomorrow. But we're going to move forward on this, and while Igor's working on the rest of it today or tomorrow, I'm going to be working on electronics or something I can do sitting down, because my back and legs are not good. At any rate, part 1 of the original series captain's chair build is done. I'm calling it good. Alrighty then, so we're wrapping it up for day 2. Igor's got to go. We had to put everything away because rain's coming through again. So we've got everything cut up for the base, everything cut up for the swivel support, and the bottom part of the cradle not seen here. So that's going to be about it for a while until the weather stops on the 1-to-1 original series captain's chair. And I am wore out. Woo-hoo. All right, and here is the chair support, or no, the pedestal support. We've got another one just like it, close but not quite the same size for the chair support, and let's have a look at the actual cradle. And here's the cradle. This is where the seat's gonna go, right here. And then the back will go obviously back there. And this will sit on top of the pedestal. And then we add the consoles on either side. So Igor's done a fine job, and we're getting ready to clean up for the day and move on to something else. Coming soon to a vendor near you. Yes, it's the 1/20th scale bridge and BC deck. Look at the pearl. Is that beautiful? Or what? You just can't see how awesome that pearl is until you have it on video, HD, and move the camera and watch the light play along the pearl paint job. Is that awesome or what? Coming soon, exclusively through Evans Lighting, the 1/20th Bridge and BC deck, and the Travel Pod and Vulcan Shuttle, and Work Bees. Same man time, same man channel. Stay tuned. All right, I'm preparing to attach the thrusters to the 4 halves of the main body of the Aries. Now, I needed something to go back behind this just to give it a little strength. So what I come up with is I took some of this flash out of the bottom of a container that I used to mix up 2-part binary resin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this up. I'm going to put some back behind that opening, and we'll let and epoxy that in place, let that cure. Then I'm going to go ahead and start epoxying the thrusters onto here. Then I'm going to start assembly on the 4 main halves. So we will see some more of this in just a minute. I mixed up some 2-part JB Weld 6-minute fast hardening, used a piece of flash just like I said previously, put a drop of JB Weld around the outside of the hole where the thrusters go, place the piece of flash from the binary epoxy resin in place. Now I'm going to let it dry. I'll come back later and attach the thrusters. I've cleaned up and painted most of the landing gear parts. Not all of them are shown here, but I've cleaned up and painted most of the landing gear parts, and I've hit them with 2 or 3 coats, as with before, a dark primer, a light primer, and a flat white. I've also done pretty much the same thing with these main body pieces, and as you can see, I've epoxied some pieces back behind the main body components so that I can attach the thrust nozzle assembly for the attitude thrusters. All right, well, we'll check on this a little more later, or maybe in the next movie. All right, as you can see here, this is the main engine exhaust of the main engine thrust assembly. These are the rectangular octagonal parts that you see on the bottom that contain all the various thrust nozzles. Now, the way I painted this is the same way I painted some of the other parts, using 3 different colors of essentially primer or flat paints at different angles to get a look that looks like the lunar regolith has been spinning all around and built up over a period of time on the tops of these engines, or engine exhausts. Now underneath you can see it looks like, just like it looks in the movie or on the movie prop. You can see that it's all burnt and carbonized from all the heat from the various different thrust nozzles all working together in tandem. There you go. All right, well, I finally got these parts to take some paint. I don't know what it was. I guess it was the amount of mold release or barrier, whatever Captain Cardboard put on these parts so they would free up easily from the molds. But I had a hell of a time to get these parts to take some paint. They've finally taken some paint. Now I'm going to sand each one of these parts and hit them with a light coat of flat white. Now what I'm going to do here is, my friend Matt wants floodlights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a drill bit, drill right up in here, up to a certain depth, then come around through the back and drill through there and run a fiber optic up in here so that when this is sitting on its legs, there will be a floodlight pointing down to show where to land. More to come. All right. Well, I got an email asking me about vinyl kits. So here we go. I bought this vinyl kit on eBay for about 20 bucks, and I'm going to show you how to build it. It's really simple. You heat up your water, as you can see the steam coming off the water there, to just about boiling. Put all your parts in to soften them up. Trim off your flash. Use super glue or super glue gel, also known as cyanoacrylic. Use that super glue gel or super glue to glue all the parts together. Paint with acrylic based paints, because these vinyl kits don't take enamel very well. So if nothing else, you put an acrylic base coat on, and then you shoot it with your enamel or your lacquer or what have you. It all depends on what you're going for. All I'm going to do is paint this up in acrylic, shoot it with some acrylic sealer, and then go over and do some dry brush techniques and some detail techniques. As you can see, you've got a couple of options for the hands to come up with a couple of different looks. And of course, you can position this almost any way you want. Now, when I did the torso section, what I did, as soon as I got most of the trim off, I heated it back up and then I shaped it to fit the legs. So that's what you do with each piece. If necessary, you heat the part up after you've trimmed the flash off and shape it to where you want it so it'll fit exactly the way it needs to fit. Again, acrylic paint is best for these types of things, and then you can use, of course, acrylic sealer. So, there you go, vinyl kits. Easy peasy. Alright, I've trimmed up all the flash on all of the parts except right around the neck. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint each one of these parts with a base coat of acrylic flat black. Okay, let that dry, then hit it with some acrylic sealer, then start assembly. I will do a small demonstration on dry brushing and a couple of other things real quick. Part 2 of building the Frankenstein. Let's have a look at der Frankenstein one more time. Alright, as you can see, I've hit everything with primer and or flat black. Now I thought there were more than one set of hands for this model, but I was wrong. All the little parts made up 2 hands, and there is one spare that just looks stupid, so we're not even going to deal with that. Now what I'm going to do here is real easy. I'm going to paint the black here around the collar. I'm going to trim up the neck some more. I'm going to detail paint the head using a couple of light washes and some chalk or charcoal. I'm going to use some charcoal, and I don't think I'm going to have time to really get into a demonstration on that. Then I'm going to go over and paint the hair, etc., and add some shadows. I'm strictly going with a grayscale on this to make it look like it come right out of the movie. I'm going to make my own diorama and background, and this will look literally like a scene out of the movie. So there we go. We put the base coat on with acrylic paint, let it dry, then shot it with flat enamel black and primer gray. You will see more of this, though it may be done by the next time we see it. I'll have to explain that then. And here we have the background for the Guardian Gate diorama. Woohoo! Now there's going to be a lot more to this, and this actually looks a lot better in reality than it does in the camera. Still, it looks pretty good for just a background plate. Now, what we've got to go with this, which you saw earlier in the screen captures and or pictures, is I've got several masks to go over the actual Guardian Gate parts, because I want to get the look to be exactly right. See what I'm saying? See what I'm trying to do here? Now, not only do we have a couple of different masks to get the effect exactamundo as it should be, but I've also got several different cutouts that are going to go behind the actual model when it's built, and this will be backlit. So you will have a light shining on this, and it will be behind the actual model, so it'll look just like the scenes in the show. Now here's my favorite one. This is probably the one people remember the most. Germany declares war. Anyway, these are going to be put into slots. There will be a slot behind the back of the model. These will be backlit. The lighting for the actual Guardian gate will be totally separate from this light and will work just like you've seen earlier, and or after this little bit you will see the lights and sound circuit that I've been working on. I've already got the base cut. All I've got to do is finish assembling the base that I built from scratch, and this is going to be moving forward just like every other project. More another day. Woohoo!
Since before your sun burned hot in space, and before your race was born, I have awaited a question. A question. Since before your sun burned hot in space, and before your race was born, I have awaited a question. A question. Since before your sun burned hot in space, and before your race was born, I have awaited a question.
All right, well, this used to be my model, but a friend of mine, Mike, wanted to build, so I taped everything off, shot it with a dark coat of primer. I'm getting ready to sand everything down lightly with about 600 grit wet sandpaper, at which point I'm going to shoot with the lighter base coat. So that's where we are on this. It's not a big deal, not a lot to show. I just wanted to make sure that I got showed a little bit of work on this build. I've got, as you know, two other original series ships in the works right now. So yes, we will see this again. More still, another original series enterprise. Woohoo! And here is Mike's lower primary hull, which I've been sanding on. I actually went with some 400 grit wet sandpaper and sanded it wet. As you can see, I've been trying to get rid of, once again, all of those obnoxiously deep and prominent grid lines to try to make them look where there's just a shadow. That's one of the main things with this ship. I really, nobody I know that I've done any build-ups with or that have done build-ups keeps those deep grid lines. So, at any rate, I'm gonna wash this off, let it dry, and shoot it with a base coat. Hoo-hoo! I wanted to do a quick comparison since I was working on all three of these today, and the refit and the dreadnought. This is the dark primer, which doesn't seem to be too dark right now, but it's a lot darker than the base coat. This is Mike's 350th original series, and this darker primer does good for a light blocker. Then you shoot it with the lighter primer, and that makes for a really good base coat. Now, as you can see here, I've just finished sanding all the grid lines down on the top of Mike's upper primary hull. This is Mark's upper primary hull, which is getting ready to be detailed, and this is Jack's. Now, on Jack's build, we've had a couple of changes. I'm going to be making some windows and transparencies with different scenes from Star Trek in the windows, and I'm going to do something nifty with one of the larger squares on top. I don't know if these are supposed to be rec decks or briefing rooms or what, but I'm going to come up with something nifty in one of the larger rear windows, so you can look down in it and see a little scene from, say, a briefing room or a bowling alley. Haven't quite decided what just yet. So, there we go. Dark primer, base coat, semi-finished upper primary hull. Now, this paint that I use for the base coat and for the finish coat is nothing more than some Rust-Oleum primer, and I will go ahead and show that in just a second. Okay, and here it is. Now I've shown this before, but I want to make sure I show it again. You can get this at Home Depot for about $5 or $6 a can, and this is the stuff that is almost an exact perfect match for the 1966 Ford Gray primer that was used on the original Enterprise. Woohoo! How do you like me now? Let's look at some super detailed decals for your 1/350th original series bridge. Now I made these up for Evans Lighting, and I wanted to show you that they are an exact perfect fit for the clear parts. Now if you see there, that would be the top part that goes up here, and you've got all your little details for all around the bridge right there. These are water slide decals. Transparencies are also available so that you can cut these out very carefully, use a set of tweezers, and put them in place. And then backlight all the little panels. Now, I'm going to make a brand new bridge for Jack's original series build-up, and Mark's and Mike's. So, I'm going to be using these decals, and I will show exactly how to super detail your original series bridge. Also, I wanted to show how to mask and set up your clear cast parts for your shuttle bay. Now the shuttle bay comes in several parts, but when I made a mold of this, I cast these two parts together as one. Now all you've got to do is put some masking tape where your lights need to go, backlight it through here, hit it with several coats of primer, and then the appropriate coat. Use a little bit of filler around here. Now I'm going to be taking a piece of 20,000 styrene and cutting it to match this after it's laid in place. And then I'll pre-paint it and epoxy it across the top here so I don't have to paint twice. Now I don't know why they set the bridge up this way. I have no idea. I had nothing to do with the engineering of this, because I would have done it differently, and that's a fact. At any rate, we will see more of this on 3 original series builds. Yes, 3. I just got another one, so that's why I've been getting hot on all these projects. I got to get some of this stuff out the door. All right, let's have a look at the Space 1999 Alien. This is a rover, supposedly, that was actually never in the show. This was loosely based on a George Barris design called the Moonscope, another one of George Barris's brilliant automobiles from the 70s, 60s, and 70s. At any rate, this was designed around the Moonscope and was essentially used, Space 1999's name, to sell model kits. Now it's an interesting little kit. It comes with 6 wheels, which I am not going to use, and they're odd, weird looking shaped wheels that look stupid. There's absolutely no use for anything like that, even on a moon buggy. So I'm going to change it up, and I'm going to put some different tires on the front and the rear. Now this comes with an interesting little moonscape base, which I'm probably going to use for the Eagle, for the Space 1999 Eagle. And I'll make up some kind of little thing to go with this another time. Not really worried about it. I've already started working on this, piecing some of the parts together, trimming some of the parts out of the parts trees. You know, I would suggest it. I wouldn't pay more than 15 or 20 bucks for it. If you pay more than $20 for this kit, you're getting ripped off, because it's just not worth it. You got maybe 50 cents worth of styrene there. And all it is another Polar Lights repop of an old MPC or AMT kit. So, we will see this complete in another movie. Look what we have here. Grandpa Munster's Dragula from the Munsters. And look, it comes with, that's right, a free card model. A free cardstock diorama. Don't you just love it? Okay, here it is. This is it. You got a whole bunch of chrome parts to make a snap. Everything's molded in black, so you're going to have to shoot it with primer before you hit it with any gold paint. It's really a overly simple model as far as I'm concerned. The hatch does not open, so, oh well, I guess you're going to have to go at it with a razor saw or a Dremel. I'm not dealing with it. I'm just going to build it as it is out of the box and get it done, but I'm not going to worry about it today. This will be for another day. Anyway, here's Grandpa Munster's Dragula. A really simple model with a free card model diorama. Okay, look what we have here. This is the figure that comes with the Space 1999 Alien Moon Rover. Guess what? It doesn't even look like a Space 1999 character. It looks a lot more like a 2001 A Space Odyssey character. So what am I going to do? I'm going to cut the left hand off, resculpt the right hand, make a copy of the right hand, resculpt it for a left hand, and turn this into a little 2001 A Space Odyssey figure. I've already got the obelisk ready to go. So we will see this again, but it will be 2001 A Space Odyssey. Alrighty then, look what we have here. An old Revell Aerovet. Guess what I'm going to do with this? First of all, I'm going to replace the tires for the 1999 Alien Rover with these tires and rims. And I'm going to turn this into a Federation Delta Wing fighter, because it looks like it goes right along with the shuttle that I made from the AMT Amtronic and a couple of the other George Barris productions. So I'm going to make my own George Barris Federation fighter out of this. Whoa! Oh my! Oh my! Earth versus the flying saucers. Well, I went from Mr. Sulu to Mr. Gildersleeve like that. Okay, the Earth versus the flying saucers model from Atlantis. Jeez, this is small. Beautiful, brilliant box art, but I mean, frankly, who cares about the box art for crying out loud? This is it. This is all you get. Bottom, top, an elevator, a little sensor dish or whatever, ray gun dish, a blinky, and a little stand. That's it. And look, this is my hand. It's so small, 5 inches maybe in diameter. I mean, wow. I would love to recommend this kit. I really would. But I'm sorry, I just can't. I cannot recommend this kit. Sorry. God, if it was a little bigger, a little more complicated, had just a couple of more different things, I don't know. It's so simple. But look, it does come with, yep, you guessed it, a free cardstock model. I love it. You gotta love it. So, buyer beware, caveat emptor. If you're looking to pay $28-30 for this, this is what you get. Wow. Keep on trekking. Looky here. The Jupiter C 1/48 scale rocket. Now this is a halfway decent kit. Look at all the parts. Woohoo! Not really a complicated kit, but 1/48 scale. Now this is essentially, this is the Redstone rocket. This was right before the Mercury program, and then the Gemini program, and then the Apollo. This is essentially, or was, the next step in the Germans' V2 rocket program. Because if you know, virtually all of NASA that was started at the JPL lab were Nazis that came from the Peenemünde group after the fall of the Germans in World War II, 1945. So, yeah, this is really a Nazi rocket. Werner von Braun from the Peenemünde Group was the head of NASA JPL for quite a while, the unofficial head. He was essentially forgiven all of his World War atrocities if he would help us get our rocket program off the ground. So basically, we owe our rocket program in the 50s and 60s to the Nazis, and that is an unfortunate but true fact. At any rate, here's the Jupiter C. I'm going to build this. This is a great kit. I love building these real rocket kits as much as I do the Sci-Fi rockets and Sci-Fi kits. I got this for about what I paid for that little Earth versus the Flying Saucer. This is the 1991 Glencoe version. You can still find these on eBay at a halfway decent price. I recommend the kit if you're into model rocketry or if you're into the space program or you name it. I mean, this fits just about any category from pulp fiction all the way up to modern day sci-fi, because this is where it all started. Oh well, we'll see this later, another day. Alrighty then, here are 3 parts of the 1-to-1 scale Nomad. Paper to plastic, that's right baby. Nothing more than paper, primer, fiberglass and resin. Okay, what you see here, they look pretty rough. That's true, but that's part of the art, isn't it? What you see is several levels of resin, paint, paper, primer, etc. Now, I just got done sanding this with the orbital sander, and this as well. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot this with primer real quick just to show you how good it looks after one pass with the orbital sander and some primer. What I'm going to do is combine this part, and that part is going to be the cab or vice versa, the part that goes on top of the top hat on the Nomad. Now, this is just going to be a couple of minute video because I'm not going to go too long past this, but this will help you to visualize the build of the entire thing. And again, this is nothing more than paper, templates, resin, and primer. And there it is. Now we'll let this dry for a couple of days and we'll go back at it with the orbital sander. Then we'll cut an edge right along the bottom perimeter and finish this up and add the 2 pieces. All right, let's look at some more toss stuff. We've already seen this just in the previous little vignette. This is the back piece that goes up underneath. This is the insert that goes inside. This is the main plate for the wall mount communications unit. 1/6 scale version of the exact same thing. The clear cast alert and original series buttons. All they need to do is be painted the proper color. More original series buttons, and here is a replacement button rocker switch that will not quite work, but I may be using the case. So I've also got a complete set of original series command chair parts that are going out in the mail this Monday. So that's why I've been collecting all of this together. I've got a couple of different orders on original series stuff, and I've been busting my hump trying to get everything I possibly could out the door to get caught up on some of the long-term build-ups and new products. Woohoo! All right, I've been working on the lighting for the 350 refit. And there's some pictures you'll see after this or before it. I don't know yet. Haven't edited everything yet. But you've got this really nice gap down here for light to show through. And you want your lights to shine out, your beauty lights, in 3 different places, here, here, and here. And that's exactly where they put the pins for you to align it. Now, I've cut a hole in this with a hole saw so that I can work with it the way I want to, and I'm going to end up moving 1 or all 3 of these pins just so I can put the super bright LEDs where they need to be. But then I've got to come back here and plug this big gaping hole of a light leak. So yeah, when you go to build one of these, think about that. You got to re-engineer almost every part on this stupid model. Anyway, there we go on the 350 refit lighting. Alrighty then, I want to do a little demonstration here on making some 1-to-1 Nomad scale parts, also using cardstock as templates for creating patterns and using those patterns to create parts, as well as how to use a couple of basic tools. This, for instance, is a machinist scale. Now, I've got used to using a machinist scale a lot more than virtually any other thing when it comes to drafting and or measuring, but I've also been using this template, which is used in drafting for drafting circles of different diameters, etc. This can also be used as a diameter or circumference gauge to find out what size, say, diameter one of these parts is. For instance, I need to know what is the diameter of, just a second, what's the diameter of the semicircles that come out of this Nomad part. And what I come up with is that it is almost perfectly 1 1/4 inches right there. So all I've got to do is use this gauge to trace out some circles onto 80,000 styrene, which is just about this thickness. I'll cut out those circles, cut the circles in half, and use those for details on this box. This is really nothing more than a couple of boxes that are going to make up the whole of a detail part that goes on the deck on the top of the Nomad, on the main body. Now this is a piece of the 1/6 scale Nomad, but while cleaning it up and working on it, I decided I needed to change a couple of details. Thus, I wanted to do this first, rescale everything down by 1/6, and then create some new details to replace a couple of the details on this existing master. So, here you go. Use a scale to get your diameter, get the length and size of your box. Make sure this matches up with the blueprints. Excuse me, I got the original blueprints from Max Mills. He worked on them very diligently, but I found a couple of errors and we worked together to correct said errors, and this is the result. This is one of the results. This is going to be a finished part. The main issue was around the main body base plate, which I've already shown in previous videos. The length and width and size aspect ratio of the part was not correct. Neither was the placement of the holes, but that's only because Max did not have the references that I had available to me. At any rate, let's move forward with this. I'll show you what this looks like as soon as I get the patterns cut out and the cardstock model folded. And here it is. Part of a 1-to-1 Nomad part, mocked up in cardstock. Okay, for about the last week or so, I have been doing nothing but molding and casting. Now, I was molding and casting some things for Evan's lighting to make new lighting kits. After I finish up this week's endeavors, I'm going to be working on brand new electronics for several different ships, refits, original series, etc., etc. We'll be working on a lighting kit for the Aries as well. So, I wanted to wrap some of this up. I get asked all the time about the status of the 50-inch refit, so I wanted to show some of the masters, the detail parts, and the casts. Yes, it is moving forward. I know it's been 8 years, but there was a lot of stuff that went on in between, not the least of which was losing control of the masters for 2.5, almost 3 years. At any rate, here are some of the details. You can see the detail of each one of these parts, and I want to make sure that I get in there close and allow it to focus for you to see. Now here is a clear cast piece that goes in behind this piece, which is part of the forward leading edge of the sensor dome, sensor array area. And let's see, here is the sensor dish. Now I did have a clear part, but it has since started to yellow on me because of being in the UV light. So I'm gonna have to cast up a brand new one to show. And I also want to go ahead and dye it, which I will do a demonstration on dyeing clear cast parts in this video or in the next video. It all depends on how much video I end up with at the end of this week. Now, as you can see here, here's a fresh cast out of one of Scott Einoff, aka AW Studios molds. He sent me the molds down here, and I'm doing a job for him. Thank you, Scott. These are both masters. One is less detailed than the other, and I need to get a real good mold of this, but I've got to do some minimal reconstruction work on this. I'm not really happy with it 100%, so I've got to sand it down and recut the lines the way they should be. Then I'll get this in the mold. As you can see here, this is one of the rear shuttle bay cabs. Now look at the detail on that. This is a master, and it took weeks to work this and smooth it and shape it and maintain all the details. But this ship is going to look phenomenal. I just can't even begin to tell you how detailed it is. We spent years working on this ship. Part of the nacelles here. Now I've cast all these parts. I'm going to go ahead and paint up some new parts and get the nacelles under construction. The pylons are done. Most of the engineering hull is done. I've got to work on finishing up the spine. Here you can see the impulse crystal. Now, does that look sharp or what? That is going to look so beautiful. Look at the size of it. As you can see, you've got this little thin detailed cage that goes over this clear part. Now, if this was sanded up and hit with some 600 grit sandpaper and then the cage put back on it and some blue light shown underneath it, that would just look beautiful. Now, I've got a good mold on the torpedo deck, torpedo launch tubes. The truth is though, I'm just really not happy with it. I'm going to make a new 2-part mold off of this master, at least a 2-part mold. And I did want to show some of the fine details on this cast piece that goes on the rear. Well, you know where it goes, on the back lower part of the nacelle. Now I'm going to show some of the construction at some point on a build-up I'm doing. I'm just really reticent to show it until it looks really good, because there are so many nitpicking rivet counters out there that, well, they've always got something negative to say, you know the type. At any rate, here's a look at some of the 50-inch refit details. Woohoo! All right, let's have a quick look at the 1/6 scale Sounds and Lights Nomad that's getting closer and closer to being done every day. As I said, I'm going to repair and replace some of the details on the main deck, top part of the Nomad. These are the 2 clear cast halves, as well as the brass. I sent Elliot the pattern that I made up, and this is a 1/6 representation of the pattern for the main body that shows where the lights blink. As you can see, here are the masters for the head part, the lower portion, the top hat. Here are a couple of casts. They need a little cleanup. I'm going to finish this up. I've already got all the molds made. I'm going to use the actual masters to create the prototype to show in video. I've got a couple of small changes, nothing major, and this will be done. So we will see this again very soon, walking and talking. Well, maybe not walking and talking, but winking and blinking and talking. How about that? 1/6 scale Nomad. Look at the 1/6 scale Nomad currently under construction. I'm trying to get in there real tight to show Elliott Brown's awesome brass work. I don't know if the patterns are showing through. I will know once I view the video. But all the brass work on this thus far has all been done by Elliott. Look at that. Now I know you can see that. Now this is my finger. Look at the detail he got into that brass. Is that awesome or what? Wow. Elliott Brown's awesome brass work. Woohoo! Alright, let's have another look at the 1/6 scale Nomad. As you can see, we got Elliott's brass work again. We've got the two main halves of the main body. Some previous tests on Elliott's brass work. The original masters, some cast parts. We've got the male and female connectors. I've also got some brass rod and some other parts to go along with this. You've already seen the electronics, but I'm going to go ahead and show a brief example of that behind this video. And we'll get a look at a completed version ready to ship out in the next movie. I hope. If all things go according to plan, that's what it'll be. Anyway, there we go. Some more on the 1/6 Nomad and Elliott Brown's brilliant brass work. Look at that. My goodness. Woohoo!
I'll just keep getting stronger. You know that, don't you?
A question. Since before your sun burned hot in space, and before your race was born,